Welcome to the Day One Podcast. I'm Adam Daly.
And I'm Brett Nord.
And we're excited to be back for another episode. And we've got some great stuff for you today. Not that we don't every week.
This is more than usual. This is good stuff.
But we're both really excited. We're being joined today by Day One fan Brian Renshaw. How you doing, Brian?
Brian.
I'm doing well.
Excellent.
Just glad to be on here.
Thank you for joining us today. And in a bit, Brian's going to talk to us about using shortcuts in Day One. And he's got some great stuff to give to us today. Hopefully that'll help out. We did post some questions on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram to ask, what kind of help you want. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. And we'll get into that in a little bit. But first, let's talk about some updates.
Yes.
Because I've got news for everyone today. So we're recording Friday. This episode comes out Monday.
Right.
Version 3 of Day One on Mac is available.
How about that, Brian?
I'm excited.
I hope everybody has had a chance to download it.
I actually don't use it on the Mac that much, but I opened it up the other day to try it out, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is quite a bit different.
So you've tried the beta then?
No, I haven't tried. No, I tried the old version.
Oh, okay.
Just you wait.
So I'm looking forward to the update.
Yeah, the update really brings in the relationship between iOS and macOS really well. The design looks great. I'm a huge fan of it. I love doing my entries in new windows, and all of that's really well supported now. So check that out. Performance has improved a lot as well. If you have any kind of questions about how to use it, how to navigate around, I just would recommend click around,
Sure.
Click the buttons and find out what they do. But we also have updated our help guides on help.dayoneapp.com. So if you have questions about how to create entries or how to edit and format your entries, how to add photos, what the journal views look like, go to help.dayoneapp.com, search macOS, and you'll find those articles that'll help you out with screenshots.
Yes.
So
good work, Adam.
Trying to make it nice and easy for you. But a lot of it, honestly, it should be pretty intuitive, in my opinion. So
and parity with the iOS. So
yeah. The editor looks really great. Being able to format the entries is very similar to iOS now, so check that out. More to come too. There's a lot of stuff behind the scenes going on, especially with handling URLs and video embeds in Day One. Those are being improved. It's not going to be in this first release of 3.0 on Mac, but it's coming to both iOS and Mac. And as I've mentioned before, still trying to find the best way forward on Android and the web, so stay tuned on those.
Right.
Those are my updates. I don't have a ton, but version 3 on Mac is huge.
Yeah. Excited to hear users' feedback on that. So.
Yeah, let us know what you think. Obviously, if you have questions or concerns or something isn't working for you, contact support. You can find the ways to contact us at dayoneapp.com/contact. Or if you have questions that you want us to address on the podcast, email us at podcast@dayoneapp.com.
Right on. All right, Brian, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
All right.
Glad to be here.
First, tell us a little bit about yourself. Who is this guy named Brian Renshaw?
Yeah. So I'm Brian Renshaw. I am a PhD student studying the New Testament, and then I also work at a seminary here in Louisville, Kentucky, in academic administration. And so I've done stuff in online learning, and I like to write on productivity and just that's about it.
Awesome.
Great.
No, that's well accomplished.
I loved your posts in the thread from the Animators podcast. That's where I think I first saw your name, and then all of a sudden I started seeing your name a lot when I looked at any kind of series shortcuts. There was Brian Renshaw. So you do a lot. That's great. Looking forward to learning from you today. Yeah,
I've been diving into the Shortcuts app a lot more lately since it came out, but I've really enjoyed it.
In fact, you named a day of the week after it, right? Shortcut Saturday? Which day?
Shortcut Monday.
Monday. Oh, it sounds so much
Shortcut
better.
Monday.
Where's the alliteration, Brian? Where's the alliteration?
I know. I try to do it every Monday. When life gets crazy,
sure.
The blog is kind of the last thing that I keep up with. So if I haven't posted in a couple weeks, it's because life is taking its turn.
Yep.
Gotcha. We know that.
So, do you have a background in technology or anything like that? Have you done coding on your own, or?
I haven't done any coding. I'm just really interested in technology, especially kind of the productivity side. One of the things with like shortcuts, well, we can talk about this in more detail, but there's a lot of very in-depth shortcuts out there from people with coding background and programming background. I think that that turned me off to a lot of it because I would look at it and be like, well, I can change this, and then there'd be like a iOS update, and then everything would break, or an app update, everything would break. And so lately I've just taken a dive like, okay, how can I do this simply for myself and learn from there instead of kind of relying on a lot of people's shortcuts. I've learned from them, but yeah, I don't have a coding background. I find a lot of people do have coding backgrounds, and they're writing these complex, and I'm like, I don't have time for that.
Well, no, see, that's exactly what scares me off of it as well. Right. I mean, I work for Day One, and I look at the Shortcuts app, and I'm like, this is it can get complicated.
Right. It can get very complicated.
You can add a lot of variables in there that really can be a deep shortcut that can do a lot of things, but you're adding those manually in and working those out. So I got intimidated by it, and I'm sure we have users that are intimidated by it, even though there's a lot of ways to automate things or improve, speed it up through the Shortcuts app. I mean, it's supposed to be a shortcut, right? Not a long cut.
Right.
This is an example for me of it's who you know, not what you know.
There you
because
go.
I'd rather know people like Brian that can code these or a good resource and find them, and then just use them and a little tweak here and there to modify. But they do all the heavy lifting. I just come in and make it look.
Yeah, that's why I tried doing the Shortcut Monday to create simple, well, a little bit more advanced, but still pretty simple, and then kind of explain every step where there's not. Where I think people can read and understand kind of what's going on and create it for themselves.
Yeah.
Sure.
Cool.
Why don't we stay on the topic of shortcuts, and then I think at the end we'll tie back into specifically Day One and Brian, how you use Day One. But I think it's interesting. Since we brought up the topic now, let's just dive right in. Shortcuts.
So, I mean, also we should probably specify the difference, right, between the two.
Yes, and we had a couple questions actually about that, making sure that we were basic enough to start with what actually is the difference between Siri Shortcuts and the Shortcuts app.
Right.
When would you use one or the other?
Yeah, let's start there. Is that all right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to say this, and please correct me if I'm wrong. So there's two different options you can do. One are the Siri shortcuts you can access within the Day One app, and this ties directly to Siri, so you can say, "Hey Siri, do this." Oh, I knew I was going to activate that. But you can ask her to, add a photo to my entry, and it automatically pulls up Day One, and you add a photo, etc. But then there's the Shortcuts app, where you can add all sorts of different variables and different things, text fields, etc. And then it will pull up Day One at the end and kind of throw in your information, your data there. Is that right? Did I get all that right?
Yeah, that's basically right. The Siri shortcuts are all activated by Siri.
Right.
And the shortcuts, you can actually use that Siri shortcut in the Shortcuts app, which will allow you to add it to the widgets or open up the Shortcuts app and do it manually. So I actually use Siri shortcuts within the Shortcuts app.
Okay.
Because I actually don't use Siri that much because I always feel like I'm in a place where I'm not going to activate it via my voice.
You're not going to invoke her?
Right. It's like I'm in a coffee shop and I want to do something quickly. Well, I can either, say hey Siri, add a photo. Well, I just activated Siri. I knew
it's going to happen.
Now it's reading my text. Yeah. So I actually do everything through the shortcuts and add them to that, even if it's like a one action thing. And then,
so you're combining the two then.
I do combine the two.
Got it. So. Okay. I just wanted to make that distinction out there because I think sometimes we do get confused. I have been before, but so there's two different ways to do it.
It is confusing.
Yeah.
Yes. That was Daniel Campbell on Facebook that asked to make sure we talk layman speak, and that's my language. That's what I speak. So
hey,
I'm good with that. Yeah. How would you use shortcuts over like IFT?
For IFTT?
Yeah.
There you go. Yep.
So I actually don't use IFTTT. They kind of run separate, and I've never really got into that. It was pretty basic. So you can integrate it some, but I'm not too familiar with IFTTT.
Okay.
So I don't do a lot of the automatic. I know there was some like Instagram connection. I think you guys are working on a Instagram plugin. I did have that for a little bit, but what I found was I just go to Instagram and look at my posts.
Yep.
Is it I mean,
fair enough.
I have a couple things that plug in and do that for me with ifted. And is it, keep wanting to say ifted, and then that,
yeah.
every word is this. Is it that there's the crossover, like similar workflows would work in either app, or are there things that are unique to each app that, you'd have to actually have both if you wanted to do different workflows?
There is some crossover. I mean, honestly, I don't use IFTTT that much, really for anything. What I have found is that IFTTT was a lot of cool things, but not useful things, and so I stopped using it. And
it's more for automation too, right?
Yeah.
So you're not you set it up once, and then as you trigger it by creating a post in Instagram or on Facebook or Twitter or whatever, it pulls that automatically in and writes it to day one. Where shortcuts, there's more of an interaction with the app itself, or some sort of invoking of Siri or whatever. So
gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. I know for a little while I had a social media journal, and I just had like all my Twitter posts that would go in there, my Instagram posts would go in there, and my Facebook posts would automatically go in there.
Yep.
But I found that I never actually really went back and looked. And when I would like have on this day, I was like, I really don't care what I posted.
yes.
And so, so I actually stopped it because it was like cluttering up everything.
Right.
Because it was so automatic, and so.
Yep,
right.
Makes sense.
Are you a longtime user of Siri shortcuts back when it was Workflow, before Apple acquired the app?
I actually was not. And so at that time, when it was Workflow, I would, what I think a lot of people do, they see a lot of cool things to do.
Right.
And so they download a bunch of things, or a bunch of workflows or shortcuts, and then never use them.
That's
because
me.
they look cool, but they're not actually practical.
Sure.
And so for probably the last 4 or 5 months, I've been thinking, okay, what am I actually doing? And then how can I just create it myself to make what I'm actually doing easier, rather than reading a bunch of blogs and seeing like, oh, this is awesome. And then I do it a couple times, and then I never do it again.
The novelty.
And so that's where I think learning shortcuts from the ground up and doing some simple things has been helpful for that.
How come we don't have an Apple Watch support for shortcuts? Do we know? Is it coming? I think we used to have one when Workflow, right? And then
I think there was. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
It would be.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I can go look that up.
I don't have insider information.
Yeah.
I'm low on the totem pole there.
No, that's fine. I did look that up this morning, and it was a part of the app at some point. I think it was when it was Workflow, and then it was pulled back, and a lot of people are upset, and I think it's just a matter of it coming back and waiting for the right time to do that. But
right.
Currently, that would be nice to have some things you could command from your watch, but not now.
Well, so can I ask that question then? Give us an example of one of the shortcuts you use that ties into day one. Like what?
Yes.
Because you mentioned, and I think it's important that we clarify, there's some cool things to do, and then there's practical things to do. So I'm guessing you lean more towards those practical ones.
Right.
What's an example of that you're using the Shortcuts app with?
Yeah, so a really simple one is so my wife and I just adopted a baby about 7 months ago.
Congrats.
And so one of the simple ones that I do is I want to add something for Jackson. And so I have a shortcut that creates a day one entry with the tag Jackson. So it's the same thing every time. And I click that widget, and then it just opens it up, and I start typing.
Cool.
That's a simple one where I use tags rather than multiple journals.
Yep.
And so I could put it in a certain journal if I wanted to, but that's just something simple where I want a consistent tag, and then anytime Jackson does something I want to record, I click on the Jackson widget button and do that.
When you say widget, do you mean from the Today screen? Where are you putting this widget?
From the Today screen.
Okay.
I think, do they call it the widget? Is it still the Today screen?
You're catching me in a, I don't know. I thought it was the Today.
It's when you swipe right with your thumb.
This guy here, right? Or you probably can't see that, but yeah.
Yeah, I can't. But so that would be a very simple one that I do where I want consistent tags. The other thing is my wife will take pictures of him every morning before dropping him off at daycare, and I have like Jackson morning pics, and it takes the day of the week, makes it for the header, so it says Tuesday morning pic, and then puts a tag Jackson morning pics, and then opens up photos, and I just add the photos right.
And you can select multiple ones in that one, multiple photos, or
So I think right now, if you use the select photos, it'll only do one photo.
Okay.
But so I have it open up day one, and then I click add photo, and then I can select multiple photos from that.
Got it.
Nice.
But I think from the shortcut itself, it'll only do one photo at a time.
All right. That's cool. Those are practical. Those are useful. I can see that. I do something very similar, but not automated like that. So I'm going to jump on that train.
Brian, I'm currently using your high-low.
Yeah.
I love that one. That's one that's on your shortcut Monday. Really should be shortcut Saturday. I'm going to say it again.
Is that the daily?
Yeah.
Is that the daily reflection one?
In fact, let me run it right now. Here we go.
Tell us what you're experiencing here.
Your high or the best thing that happened today?
Ooh, that's your voice.
Recording a podcast with Brian. Oh, sorry. I have to wait. Recording a podcast with Brian.
What was your low or the worst thing that happened today?
Recording a podcast with Adam. Oh, wait.
That's rude.
Recording a podcast with myself. See, I changed it.
What has you feeling negative right now?
Not a dang thing.
What has you feeling positive right now?
Everything.
Everything is awesome.
See? Opens up day one, and there are all my...
And I'm assuming he's... Oh, look at that. Okay, so these are bullet points. Mm-hmm. The text for the questions is bolded, and then your responses are not. That's really cool. Let's see, and that's another thing, because we get a lot of requests for templates, writing prompts.
Right. Yep.
And this is an alternative to that, where it's not necessarily built into the app, but you use the Shortcuts app.
Right.
You can get all sorts of prompts that you can set up on your own or tailor to yourself on what you want to ask yourself, and then have templates set up right into day one. It just throws it right in there.
Yep.
And I like that. I like that it's transcribing it too. I think that's going to be a big win.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this one was probably a more advanced one, but it took me a while, and I kept reiterating it and working on it. But what I found was I was wanting to do it on the drive home, and I would do like a prompt, but then I would have to read it and then do the voice. And so I was like, oh, there's a way to record my voice and then make it into a shortcut. That's that. So you can do it all audio, and then it dictates it. So
awesome.
So you too can listen to Brian's
every
voice
day.
Every day, recording your highs and lows.
That's funny, Brian. You said it was hard because I thought it was easy. I just clicked on it and added right to my day one. So no, I'm kidding.
Yeah,
you did all the heavy lifting.
Right.
No, I appreciate it. It was actually really good for me to go through the flow of learning it, because there are a couple steps you have to do, right? You have to copy the audio files to your iCloud folder and a few steps, but I thought it was really helpful. So thank you for creating that. All right. Do you have other favorite? You shared your favorite. I shared my favorite of yours. Maybe from somewhere else, another place that you got a shortcut. Do you have one that you had picked up?
So for day one specifically?
And/or either one.
Yeah. Let's see here. I mean, all my day one ones have been ones that I've created. And so I have several templates. That's really simple. So if you just use the create a day one entry, it'll bring up a little text box, and then you can create templates that it'll just open up and put them in there. And using simple markdown, so asterisks for bold, or if you want to do a list with a hyphen and headers, you can do all that in a simple template. That's the easiest way to use a template, I think.
Yeah,
is to run a shortcut to do that.
Now, here's another question. This is from one of our users on Facebook. Do you mess with anything using the URL scheme in day one? Are you messing with that in the Shortcuts app to tailor anything?
I don't.
Okay.
I just use everything that's kind of stock in the Shortcuts app, and so the dictate function that you were just using right there, that's all within the Shortcuts app. You can do URL schemes. That's getting more advanced. And quite frankly, I'm always afraid that something's going to break, or something gets updated, or something happens. And so I just try to keep it simple. And most of the time, for stuff that I'm actually using it for, I just really need simple workflows.
Right. Yeah, that makes total sense. I mean, for that use case, I think this user specifically was looking for a way to change the date and time using shortcuts and some sort of URL scheme. Because if you're using the shortcut that you've provided, right, I mean, in these couple of examples, it's creating an entry at that moment, not necessarily in the past or in the future. So I'm assuming, I don't know if there's a way within shortcuts to change the date personally.
I don't think there's any native integration with day one.
Okay. Maybe that's something we need to take back to the team and look at what's possible there.
Let's do that. When you've added a shortcut to your shortcut app in library, you've got the 3 dots in the upper right-hand corner of each workflow. You can go in and then customize, right? So if you want to change the questions, and so that's really nice. So again, to the point of download it, let somebody else do the heavy lifting like Brian, and then you go in and customize it for yourself.
Well, and for you listeners out there that are curious about these shortcuts, we're going to put links below to Brian's website so you can, check out these things. Can you search them in the gallery? Is there a way to do that?
Yes.
Well, not ones that other people have posted.
Oh, okay.
So I think these are all ones that are already native in there.
Okay. Got it.
Oh, I see.
So like if I create one and share a link to it, you have to go to that link and download it.
Got it.
Then,
okay.
Search for it.
Yeah.
All right.
Which is probably actually a good thing because it would get super cluttered.
Oh yeah. Everybody creating their own workflows.
Right.
I just Googled shortcut gallery and there's quite a few options. But do you have one, Brian, that you like to go to find your favorite workflows?
I do a lot of email workflows. So outside of day one, I do a lot of email workflows where I have templates that go to certain people. And then I use OmniFocus quite a bit.
Oh yeah, sure.
And so I have several OmniFocus ones that I use that once again are all pretty simple, where it adds a task to a project or a tag, or for like email, it brings up a prompt for the subject, and then I write and mark down to send out the email. All pretty simple, which I actually find doing those things easier on my phone now than on the computer and doing all that.
Exactly. I imagine OmniGroup has supported Siri shortcuts with a lot, and also Things. I know we've had a few people ask, comparing what Things are doing, what Things 3 is doing with shortcuts.
Right.
And looking for more.
Well, I was just looking at one that I downloaded some time ago. Well, just probably a few weeks ago, and this was. I actually thought it was you, but it was a different person. It was by Justin Cox, and he posted it to Twitter and shared it with everyone. And it's really cool. It will do, a bunch of different prompts, and it'll come up with a text box for each one. You just type it in, and then once you finish up, it posts everything in there, and it's got, emojis and stuff like that. Actually, really cool format. Yeah. Now, but that's something that he's developed. I'll share with this with Brian so he can check it out just for fun.
Yeah.
But it was pretty elaborate, and once I get done with the entire thing, I'm just going to run this real quick so I can read some of the prompts. So it'll say, use one word to describe your day, and I'll hit OK here. What happened today, so I can describe what went on. What am I grateful for today? I love that question. I have my own separate journal for that one, and we've talked about that. Yep. What can I change tomorrow? I think this is an important question for us to evaluate every once in a while, but this isn't a philosophical podcast, so I'll just skim over that one. And then it says, add the entertainment report. And you can say yes or no. So if I've watched TV or a movie or read a book, I can say yes to that and get additional prompts here. So what did I watch? What did I read?
I like that.
What did I listen to? Brett, I know that one's a big one for you. You're a big music buff.
Sure.
And then it says, and then it will go to the health app and actually pull some information from the health app. And I know that's another request that people have asked for with day one is Health Kit integration. It's definitely on our feature request list, but here's an option to get into that sooner if you want. It will go in and check out, body mass index samples or, whatever else you may want to add there. And then step counts, it'll add, and it'll even add step count from your Apple Watch. And now it's pulling up day one. I got to do my Face ID again here.
Nice.
And then, as you can see here, it populates with those things and, header styles for the different questions. It's a really cool shortcut. So I'll share that also below if you want to take a look, and I'll share that with you, Brian, just so you can see a different option there. But as I look at the code for it, it was kind of complicated. I wouldn't have been able to develop it myself, but I'm happy to glean off of other people that
it's who you know.
Smart.
Yeah, totally. We love smart people. Thank you for being smart. I also have a resource that I've looked at with Reddit. Reddit has a subreddit of Siri shortcuts, all one word, and there's quite a few in there too. And so within the subreddit, you could search for day one and find others as well.
Yeah, you can really get lost on Reddit and seeing everything that everybody does.
Of course, yes.
Are you creating regular shortcuts now, or are you just kind of you're sticking with the ones you have until something else comes up? I guess maybe my question is, what prompts you to create a shortcut?
Yeah, so I'm always trying to think of ways to do what I already do better or more productively or quicker or whatnot. And so usually it's, I've done this several times. I'm like, is there a way to automate this simply? Because I'm not a coder. I try to not spend too much time trying to figure it out.
Right.
But one thing was, so you're getting back to shortcuts. Like, I'm a St. Louis Cardinals fan, and I have 3 or 4 friends that I text regularly about baseball stuff, and but we're not like all in the same group of friends, and so I text them separate. So what I found was I was sending kind of the same like link or thought about Cardinals baseball to the same people, and so I just created a shortcut that I type it once and it sends 3 individual text messages out to separate people rather than in a group message, and I only have to type it once. So something like that was, I just thought, hey, I'm doing this over and over, and then is there a way to automate this?
Do any of those friends know that you don't have time to actually give them personal attention? That you're
because I shared it with him.
He just outed himself.
Okay,
so
that's right.
Yeah. to that end, I had a shortcut that would like text my wife that I was leaving and I'd be home at a certain time.
Sure.
And she was like, That just seems so cold. Like, just create one that just says leaving, like you would normally tell me. And so it now just says leaving.
Where's the personal touch? Where's the
right?
That's great.
So I was like, I think it's cool, but
I'm totally with you. I love that. Have you ever seen the prompts in different apps where you've done an action repeatedly, and then there's a little prompt from iOS that says, "Would you like to create a shortcut based on this?"
Yes, that will come up a lot. Personally, I find them very unhelpful.
Okay.
Because it'll pick up an action that I actually don't do that much. So, like, sometimes it'll say, hey, you sent this text message to somebody, and it's like, well, I sent it once. I'm not going to send that over and over again.
Right.
And so, yeah, every once in a while I'll see something helpful, and I'll add it.
Okay.
But yeah, I usually ignore them.
Right.
Because I don't find them that smart.
Well, and that's fair. You? Well, I was just going to say, we've had some, feedback about, why is this popping up?
Yeah.
And from what I understand, anybody can correct me if I'm wrong here, but it's an iOS prompt. It's not coming from day one, and it's based off of if the app itself that you're using allows Siri shortcut deposits, is what they call them, I guess, where...
donations.
Donations. Sorry, deposits. I was close.
Bank.
Donations, where it will start to recognize kind of a machine learning kind of thing that you're doing a repeated action over and over again. So if I'm going into day one daily, creating an entry and adding a photo, it will start to, after a few times, it'll prompt me and say, "Do you want to create a Siri shortcut for this?"
Sees a habit,
right?
Yeah.
So that's why I brought that up. But you were saying
they're usually one step,
right?
So yeah. And so that's where I usually find it not as helpful. So I just open up mine, and for day one, it suggested record audio in journal, which I already have a shortcut for.
Okay.
And so that might be, but you can also do that within the app and set up that Siri shortcut to record the audio as well.
So essentially, if I can get down to brass tacks here, there's 3 ways to set these up, right? In day one, you can go to the settings and go to Siri shortcuts.
Right.
And there will be 3 options for each journal that you have. One's photo, one's audio, one's just blank for creating an entry. And then you can set those up, record your voice, or record a specific prompt for that action. And then when you do that, when you say, hey, S-word, add whatever your key phrase is, it will open up and do that prompt, whether it's either adding a photo, doing an audio, or blank text.
Right.
That'll do that. Then there's the Shortcuts app where you can create more in-depth things, more actions to go before it actually loads into day one. And then there's also the settings on your iOS device where you can go into Siri and search, I think is what it's called.
Yeah. Siri and search, and then
add things there too, right?
Yep.
Or disable certain apps or whatever you want to do. Customize that.
And you can see all your suggestions. So like when you see something pop up and you ignore it or something, you can go into that Siri and search and you can click on like all my suggested shortcuts, and it'll have a huge list of different apps for everything. So like here's one that comes up for like sending a text message. It just says, "Dude, I know." Send to this friend. I'm like, I'm probably not. I don't need a shortcut to send that because I'm probably not going to say that often.
I don't know, Brian.
Right. So,
dude, I know.
It was like I just typed that once, and it's like, do you want to create a shortcut for that? No,
funny.
I don't.
I wonder why it would do that after one time. Then
I don't.
Just
know.
kind of an anomaly or something, or because for me, I haven't seen it pop up too many times. But in day one, I'm doing regular things like QA and beta testing and stuff like that, and so I'll see it pop up more frequently. But that's interesting that it came up after one time on a text message.
I'm glad we brought this up because this was a question from JMW2187 on Instagram. This very question that we're talking about.
Oh, how to set them up?
The prompt about a shortcut.
Oh, okay.
So I was asking about that.
Yeah, so that one that pops up like from the bottom and it looks like it's got a Siri icon in there, that's coming from iOS. That's not necessarily a day one prompt that we're sending up there. It's based on repeated actions that you're taking, from what I know. So it's all a learning process for me as well.
We're going to get this down just in time for day one to have the journal prompts built in and the whole template stuff done.
But like I said, this is at your leisure. This is something that, or you can glean off of others that have already created things like this. Because I remember back in the day, I used to run a Launch Center Pro shortcut that was very similar, and it was about movie reviews. And the cool thing was it would create a markdown table for me, and it would have, I could give it a star rating, and that would be all included in my my entry there, and I really liked that. And so when workflow/shortcuts came out, I was like, maybe I can adapt that and put it in here, and then I don't have to pay Launch Center. And anyway, but it's all about, like Brian said, being more productive, making it useful.
Yeah,
is that something you're going to be using?
Yep. Good stuff. All right. Well, I'd love to know how Brian uses day one specifically. So
yeah, let's
Brian,
dive in.
Do you have anything else about shortcuts before we move on?
No, I would say if you're getting started with shortcuts in day one, create a template with the create day one entry shortcut within the app. If you just search for day one, once you create an action, and just drag that over, and then add some prompts for yourself, and then when day one opens, that prompt will be right there, and then you just type below your question or heading. That's kind of how I got started with using day one shortcuts, and then. From there, I was thinking, okay, here's some more things I could do. Yeah.
When I look in the gallery right now and type in day one, I get the options of edit photo to day one, add work entry to day one, save Safari quote to day one, and save Instapaper quote to day one.
That's cool.
So it's a good place to start.
I wonder who created those. Can we see that? I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Show actions. No, it doesn't say necessarily. So this other one had...
Adam, while you're looking that up, Brian, I'm giving you a heads up to be looking for your first day one entry.
I already have it.
Oh, man,
he's ready for you.
And in the workflow that you recorded the audio, you gave me a 3-second, is that right? 3-second pause before you audio dictate?
Yeah, the reason because I found that if I didn't give myself a second to think, or 3 seconds to think, then it would just kind of move on without me. Now, when I'm showing somebody, it seems like it's forever.
Yeah.
But if you're doing it, if you're actually using it, it feels about the right time.
Sure, that's good.
But when we were doing that example, it's really have to wait 3 seconds.
Yeah.
Well,
so I'm going to ask you again about your first entry. Wait 3 seconds and then give me your answer. Okay.
All right.
So Brian, tell us about your first entry.
All right. So my first entry was back Thursday, November 17th, 2011. And it just said, Red Robin with Jen, my wife, good conversation, praying for your job and boss. That's all it said. So my day one is full of just little things like that. And, as I was reading it, I'm like, oh yeah. And so that brought up a flood of memories of, okay, that time of life, there was, work was hard and other things. And what I have found as I've been using it more and more is even really short entries like this are super helpful. There have been times where I try to get in the journaling mindset, and I have to have this 3-paragraph reflection on the day and my thoughts and everything else. And when I do that, it lasts about one day.
Yep.
And and then I beat myself up, and so I related to my first entry, like how do I use it? I really use it as like a alternative social media, where you see other people like kind of post their life on social media. Basically, anything that kind of happens throughout the day, I'll just add, hey, this happened, or especially at the end of the day, I'll just write, hey, this happened, and whatnot. So I like to call it my alternative social media feed.
Yep.
Which is really just a log of my life, and I try not to pressure myself into putting too much. And when I want to put more, I put more. And so I have all kinds of different links of journaling.
I like that. Yeah. And I like that even a few words or a couple of sentences can still trigger memories of that time. Mm-hmm. Or you don't have to feel. This is your journal, right? Nobody's grading you on how long your paper is, right? But if I can just jot down a few meaningful sentences, that can still do a lot. I found what guides me in journaling is kind of thinking about my end game of journaling. So if I can put that question to you, what's your end game with journaling? Like, what do you see yourself using this as in the future? Are you printing it off for posterity? Are you looking back on a weekly or monthly or yearly basis and kind of reviewing how your year went, or what's the end purpose for you?
Yeah, so I have actually never used the printing function.
Okay.
I keep wanting to, but I've never used that. My end game is really reflection. So a lot of times, like on the weekend or something, or on this day, I'll just kind of go through the years, and some years I have one entry, and some years I have 7 entries from that day over the years, and it's just a time of reflection. If I want to be more intentional about it, I'll search through certain tags that I have set up just to reflect. Really, it's just kind of recording my life and reflection. And
cool.
A lot of my posts now, I've been trying to process kind of emotions and stuff like that throughout the day, or kind of on the week, just kind of try to process things, which I think in the future will be helpful to look over and see how that's going.
Yeah.
So
follow-up question.
You're allowed.
Well, it's just like they're just starting to come to me now.
Yeah.
I'm getting all sorts of inspiration. Do you feel, as far as like the reflection goes, do you feel it's helpful to you? Does it motivate you to continue? What was the other part of that question I was thinking in my brain?
Yeah, did you take action on the reflection? Is that kind of where you're going with that? Is it something that you learned from, or affect you? Does it change?
Do you feel like, okay, here's my question. So as a PhD candidate, we've seen studies that journaling helps with memory retention. It helps with catharsis, get stress relief and stuff like that. Have you noticed that through maybe even some stressful times that you've encountered, like getting through your PhD, through work, through family?
Yeah, I mean, the times that I do sit down and do a kind of longer post and reflect on what's going on, that's always really, really helpful of just kind of getting it out. Thankfully, just the community of friends I have around here, we do a lot of kind of just sharing and processing together. And what I actually find with that, since I'm doing it with other people in kind of these really safe spaces, I'll actually reflect on those conversations. And so it helps me go back and say, hey, here's what we were talking about. Because my mind, like, I'll say one thing and be like, I really need to work on this, going on in my life, and then I forget about it for 3 weeks till it comes up again. Yeah. And so journaling through that has been really helpful process, reflecting on conversations that I've had. And I use the audio function a lot to verbally process. I don't actually go back and that's the part I don't like about the audio is I usually don't go back and listen to my thoughts, but it does help to kind of get it out verbally.
Yeah, I can see that. Do you use transcription with audio, or you find yourself going longer than 5 minutes, and so maybe that's not as helpful?
So my default is to just record audio, and then I wish there was a way to have 2 different buttons, one for transcription, one for recording audio, like on my watch. Sometimes I want to transcribe but you have to do one or the other. And so I think I just have it as record audio,
Okay.
Like the conversation or whatnot. But yeah, so transcription, like the workflow that I had that I posted, I use transcription for that, and I use it some other times. But I type all the time, and I find that a little bit easier.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah.
I feel like you have to be in a certain mindset to transcribe.
I feel that too.
Mm-hmm. Back when you mentioned your friends getting together, is that an in-person thing where you talk about those things, or is that written where you correspond?
No, that's all a lot of in-person. So
Nice.
we have like a community group with our church.
That's cool.
And then just grabbing coffee with a friend. We try to be real intentional in our lives and create spaces to talk and everything. So.
And you mentioned you keep one journal and have multiple tabs, or tags. So that would be something.
Yeah,
that you would tag.
So I've always done that. I'm always surprised when I hear about people having multiple journals. I'm like, oh, I've never really thought about it. I've just always used tags.
Sure.
So I have one journal with hundreds of entries. So
See, and I think that's totally fine too. I'm a multiple journal guy, and I never use tags. But then there's other people who use tags and know multiple journals. I think it's just however you feel comfortable navigating and organizing the journal is it's sixes really.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
Because even in like an export or printing function, you can filter by just those tags. So if I want to print, just the preschool or school pictures that I have, then I can go ahead and select that tag.
Yep.
I've got one last question and then 2 speed round quick ones. Okay.
All right.
So I'd love to know a little bit more about your routine. Do you have a set time that you journal, kind of a ritual that you follow when you record?
Yeah. Well, kind of what I was saying before. I don't have any routine.
Yeah.
It's basically I keep day one on my home screen, and I try to intentionally add things throughout the day.
Yeah.
Pictures actually, most of my entries have a picture, and so just taking pictures throughout the day, and then like on the weekend, I guess one of my routines is kind of on the weekend I'll go through my photos throughout the week, and I'll select 2 to 4 pictures, and then if there was like an event going on, then I'll write a reflection on it. I've tried to do daily reflections besides the one I do on the way home from work. I just never have got into the daily routine, especially after having our first kid.
Oh,
My
yes,
schedule's all messed up.
Routines are hard to do.
It's you have to build it. You have to dedicate it.
Little people that are demanding of your time. You're like, oh, routine goes out the door.
That's true.
It's harder.
That's true.
Gotcha. All right, speed round. Ready?
All right.
Question 1: your favorite feature, day one.
My favorite feature, probably photos.
Boom.
I mean, I add tons of photos.
I'm with that. I like
Awesome.
that.
Yeah.
Question number 2: your dream feature you would love day one to have.
Video.
Ooh,
Nice.
coming soon, my friend.
We're gonna make you happy one day.
I've listening to the podcast. I'm getting excited. I would really like to add video.
All right.
I don't think I'm on a beta right
especially
now.
now. Especially now having a kid. Like,
Sure.
I just want to capture that. So that's my most wanting feature.
Well, that is a dream wish feature we are gonna give one day.
Yep, it's being worked on right now.
Yeah.
There is a. I don't think I'm on the beta right now, but there is a beta version that has video in it. It might be a developer beta, but it's working. They're still working on how to have the controls on there and storage limits, etc., or time limits or whatever. But it's coming, and it's going to be great.
Yeah, I'm excited. As one who's never used a print book, like that doesn't figuring out that aspect of it doesn't really bother me.
Sure,
but yeah, doing videos would be great.
I agree.
Nice.
I
Good
agree.
stuff.
There's a lot of good stuff on the docket here for day one, and I'm really excited about the future. I'm really thankful for Brian talking to us about shortcuts. I think those are really helpful. If you want some tips on those, we're going to put the link to Brian's website, Shortcut Mondays. So you can check those out and get any templates that you want to use and customize them for yourself, or look how they're made and maybe build your own. Because I think that'll be really helpful.
And if you just want to go right to his blog without having to look down below, it's just brianrenshaw.com.
brianrenshaw.com.
That's right.
Nice and easy.
With an I, not a Y.
That's right. And not to be confused with the bodybuilder by the same name. Did you know that?
I have noticed that. I have Googled my name and like, yeah, that's not me.
The guy that's helping us with our Instagram, he said, "Wow, I looked it up. Is it the bodybuilder?" And I didn't know about the bodybuilder. I just know about you.
Right.
His biceps are about the size of my waist, so yes, it is. And then we get talking a little bit later, and I'm like, "Oh wait, I don't think it's the same guy." And then I realized there is a legit bodybuilder that
that's great.
Shares your name. Yep. Anyway, thank you, Brian, for joining us. It's really
thank
fun.
you guys for having me.
Yeah, it's
Appreciate
good times.
Okay.
Go out and get the go out and get Mac version 3.0.
Yeah, if you haven't downloaded it already, it'll be available. It should have been available since Friday. Download version 3 for Mac. Let us know what you think. Test everything out. Not test everything out, but try the new buttons, try the new features, and let us know.
All right.
Very excited.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, we'll talk to you. I just want to give our little closing here. I mean, you can go, if you need help, we have help guides at help.dayoneapp.com. Or if you need to contact support, go to dayoneapp.com/contact. There's different ways you can get in touch with us. And then as always, follow us on our social media sites, Instagram and Twitter. We're at dayoneapp. And then on Facebook, we actually have a Facebook community. I know, there's different opinions about Facebook. We completely understand. There's just it's a platform that we've been able to use so far. We've got over 4,200 members there, and what they're doing on that site is sharing tips and tricks and best practices and asking each other questions, and you're answering each other, and it's fantastic. What a great community to join in and support each other through your use of Day One. So check that out. And this is Brett and Adam saying, have a great week.
Take care, everybody.